was like, oh, well, I'll move it.
Well, if anyone has one done and they feel satisfied with it, I'll take it. Otherwise, you can work on it over the weekend. So, let's have prayer. Test Friday of next week, and that will cover the material that finishes up with the book of Genesis. If you have questions about the format, you can see the study guide follows that. You can see me sometime in my office or wherever over the next week. So let's have prayer. Father, we do thank you that you're coming to us, that you met with us this week, that you are on the move at Asbury, that you are working in various places. And we pray that you will send your presence to Florida, where we have students ministering today, President Pokai and others who are traveling there. We pray that they will be safe, and in this class that you will help us to understand and know the material for this of importance here, that you are coming to us and being with us and helping us to learn more about you and how you have engaged with the lives of these people and how they affect us today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we are chapter 22. I had gone through this briefly, and so I may just go in review. The demonstration of Abraham's love for God definitely is involved here in this. God needed to know for certain that he had someone who will be that will come through even in a test like this. And if Abraham does, then his descendants will be characterized by this kind of commitment, and although they won't all be this way, there will be some who do, and therefore this will work. Demonstrates Abraham's overwhelming and inspiring commitment to God. He is going to go through no matter what this is requiring of him. A demonstration of God's profound love for mankind by sparing Isaac, even though he did not spare his own son. And so we can look at this as an example of substitutionary atonement. You can take that with you on Thursday night. Substitutionary atonement, in that God had ordered a sacrifice, but in the end, there was a substitute, a ram caught in the thicket that they hadn't thought about. And clearly, I think that although there may be a sense that Abraham believed that God could raise Isaac back from the dead, clearly in the book of Hebrews that is part of his thinking, but that doesn't make it any easier to kill your son when you think God can bring him back to life again after you do it. On the other hand, there has to be a real commitment to going through with this regardless of the consequences, because I don't know that any assurance that things were going to, what the true outcome would be. His statement at the bottom of the mountain, we are going up, to his servants, the boy and I, and we will return to you, I think is wishful thinking. At least he's not explaining, since clearly later on we know Isaac has no idea what the plan is, because he says, Dad, we're on our way up here, and we brought fire and we brought wood and other things, but I know you're getting a little older. I think we forgot something important. I think we left the sacrifice back at home, and now it's time I've been meaning to talk to you about this, but, and Abraham says to his son, the Lord will provide himself a sacrifice. And you can preach that all kinds of ways. He's going to make himself the sacrifice, but although the grammatical construction doesn't really mean that. But you can say it anyway, it'll preach well. He himself will provide a sacrifice. God is going to provide a sacrifice. And at that point, who is it? It's going to be Isaac. I mean, in his mind, and it's going to be you. It's not until he gets to the top of the mountain, ties up his son, lays him on the altar, and look at the submission of Isaac to this. I mean, Isaac could have resisted this in a way that the only two up there and run away, but he allows his dad to do what he's going to do. And when he brings the knife up to slay his son, that's when God intervenes, when he's already committed to doing it. And then points out there's a ram over here caught in the thicket, and boy, that was his happy day. He was over there, he kills that, he sacrifices that in place of Isaac, because all God wanted to know was that he would do it, not that he wanted him to do it. It demonstrates a clear parallel between Isaac and Jesus. Abraham's one and only son in Hebrews 11:17. The term monogenes, which is applied to Christ in John 3:16, is the same word used in the Septuagint to refer to Isaac as being Abraham's only son, that you loved, you are to sacrifice. Demonstrates the specialness of Isaac. Abraham's unique son, is the only son of Sarah, and he will be the bearer of the covenant. All the other sons of Abraham, and there are plenty of them, all of those sons are not sons of promise. Now, how does the near sacrifice of Isaac, and we should call it that, fit within the context of the Pentateuch? For the Pentateuch, we see that the pain of Abraham taking Isaac up on the mountain, this is something that is makes a profound impact on him, Isaac, the people. Within the Pentateuch itself, it is seen as a masterful piece of information. It shows the sacrifices of animals, as I mentioned, was substitutional. It took the place of a human being. In this case, Isaac. In the case of you, if you were taking an animal to be sacrificed, that animal is taking the place of you. The animal's dying in your place. And eventually Christ will die in our place. So there, animal sacrifices were done as a substitute for the human being who was making the sacrifice. A test of Abraham's faith within the context of the covenant that he's establishing. This shows his faith. It makes his faith real. And God will put us to the test, not because he wants to see how many hoops we'll jump through, but at times he will bring things into our lives that are opportunities for our faith to become even more real and actualized. The question that we're asking here is, did Abraham love Isaac or God more? And all the things that Isaac represents, too. Because Isaac is not just a child. He's a child of his old age, a child of promise, a child that is built into all kinds of legacy issues. And we can get sidetracked at times in believing that somehow the promises, blessings of God, the work of God, our ministries, or whatever the case may be, becomes even more important than really following God. And we can justify that on the basis that I'm doing this for God, and therefore I am going to see this through. And we fail to recognize that God may be moving in a slightly different direction than we anticipate, and we're unwilling to see that. We always must love God more than the things that we cherish in this world. Because sometimes God will ask us, will have us make commitments and do things and plan for things that in the end, he doesn't really make us do. Because the process of planning and choosing, I can think of a student here who she and her husband were missionaries for a while. They're not doing that today, and I don't think they've lost out spiritually or anything. But before that, she was going to go to Papua New Guinea, she was saying, as a missionary. And this was before she was married. And she was from Wolf County, and her dad was not interested in her going halfway around the world. And she had to make choices to do that anyway, if there was issues there. In the long run, that never happened. When she finally was a missionary and she was married and she went to some other place, it was not nearly as traumatic because she'd already worked through, I'm going to go to Papua New Guinea, and this other place I think was far more acceptable. It wasn't as far away, not nearly as dangerous, it appeared. God sometimes will call you to do things, and he may not even make you live them out. But God will make ways during those times. Now, within the context of the New Testament, the sacrifice of Isaac, near sacrifice, we see the heart of the Father as Jesus was on the cross. He must give way and allow Christ to be killed for our benefit. And where it says that it pleased Jesus, or God, the Father, for this to happen doesn't mean that he really enjoyed having his son killed, but that the greater good of our salvation was worth it. God could raise Isaac from the dead to sustain the covenant. That's true. And in the end, though, that was unnecessary. Because I am confident that even though Abraham was hoping for some kind of intervention, he was coming down with that knife when he made up his mind he was doing it. And that's when God reached in and grabbed hold of his wrist and stopped him. Now, where did this take place? There is some good geographical issues here. The place, it says the region of Moriah, that is in Genesis 22:2. It is thought that it could be the place Abraham met with Melchizedek, or in that same general vicinity. If Jerusalem is the Salem that is mentioned there in that passage, which most scholars believe it is, it would be in that same general location. So Abraham did know this area. The site of Solomon's temple. In 2 Chronicles 3:1, it is thought that the temple was built over this spot. And so it really becomes interesting. If you're there on the Temple Mount today, go to Jerusalem, and you visit the Dome of the Rock, where it is said that Muhammad ascended to heaven from that spot. It is also believed by many that that rock is where the Ark of the Covenant was set when the temple was there. And on the top of it, there is a little rectangular in something like indented thing that's chiseled out. I don't know exactly what word to use, on which you could place something. And if that was the height of the top of the rock was the floor level, and now it's been pulled away, there's been dirt and things pulled away, but there was paving stones up that high, that's a possibility that that's where the Ark of the Covenant was slid in. Then that would mean very likely that that could be the location where they came up on this mountain and did this, because it's in the general location. So all of this could be merged together, that the smear sacrifice of Isaac and the temple, the Holy of Holies, were at the same location, and that today, if you visit it, it's the area where the Temple Mount would be, and the Dome of the Rock. What were the results here? Demonstrated great fear in the Lord that Abraham had. He was willing to honor him and serve him. It set an example for his descendants of how to be a person of faith, and made it clear that he was going to be the father of the people who would be honored by him. And prefigured the confrontation with God on Mount Sinai later on, in which Moses, not the same mountain, but Moses will confront God there and minister on behalf of the people later on in the book of Exodus. So, after this event, which is at some point a great high point of this book, we see in chapter 23 the death of Sarah. Sarah will die, and this is very unique. In all of Scripture, there is something unique about Sarah, and do you know what it is?
Nothing.
I heard something.
Yeah, it was a joke. It wasn't.
Oh, it was a joke. It was a joke.
Yeah. This is not about Sarah, but do you ever think like Abraham, like ever told Isaac any stories of how he tried to convince Pharaoh that Sarah was his sister?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Because Isaac just goes and does the same exact thing.
It's a
Like
solid question.
you think he would learn.
That's hard to know, but it might not be.
It just kind of makes me mad.
It's possible that that might not have been that uncommon of an activity.
To lie about whether or not your spouse is your sibling?
Well,
In order to, because both of these men do seem to have the same issue with, worrying that their wives are beautiful and that they are going to be, bumped off in order to make way for someone else to have them. I don't know. I don't really know, because we have no idea. Clearly, conversations do occur. I don't think he was giving him that advice as how to avoid being.
it's just like, because both of the people they did it to,
In fact,
were like, yeah, why would you do this?
Well, that's true.
Why did you lie to me?
And it's very likely that when Isaac does this same thing, it's either to the same person or his son, because he has the same name in the same part of the world. But anyway, the death of Sarah is unique in that we know how long she lived. There's no other woman in the Bible who, when she died, we were given her age at death. She's 127 years of age. Then, yeah.
Was Hebron a city at the time?
Yes, it would have been. Hebron would have already been there. As a Canaanite city or something of that nature, yes, that already existed. And that's the same Hebron that is one of the Palestinian cities over in Israel. And there, Abraham will negotiate with the locals to buy a cave in which to bury his dead. He bought the cave and the field around it and the trees, which, by the way, make that bold and underline it and put it in italics to emphasize trees, because he is constantly, that's in the scripture here, constantly emphasizing he's buying the trees. What we see here is that the trees were one of the ways you were taxed. This was an ancient form of taxation. It doesn't say it here in the text, but that's true. In fact, the Ottoman Empire continued to do that well into the 20th century. You were taxed by the number of trees you had. That's why there's so little trees in the Middle East. Because a lot of them were cut down, especially after the Orient Express came through, burning wood. You could reduce your tax liability and sell it as a resource to the railroad in order for fuel. But get back to this. If you had trees, you were taxed. There was all kinds of ways people were taxed prior to the invention of income tax. Do you know why there are row homes in cities? Because people were taxed based on the number of exterior walls you had in your house. And row homes have only two, a front and a back one. And that's why usually the end row home is more expensive than the ones in the middle, because they have three walls. You were taxed for the number of rooms you have. That's why in many older homes, there are no hallways. You just go from room to room, and no closets. People had a wardrobe and they put their clothes in that, because a closet was another room and you'd be added to your tax liability. So there were all kinds of ways that you could be taxed. Back here, they taxed you for the number of trees. So he's emphasizing he's buying the trees. Became the burial site of the patriarchs all the way up through Jacob, and commemorated a mosque in the town of Hebron today, which that mosque is seen as the burial site of Abraham. Now, there is a cave, I am told, behind the shrine, an entrance to a cave, and it has been not very well excavated. Clearly, the Muslims are not going to allow you in there to try and dig up the bones of Abraham. So we can't prove one way or the other if they have the right cave, if there's any bodies in there, but it is likely the right place. Now, let's get back to our family tree. We have Abraham here, we have Ishmael, we have Isaac. And all of these other parts of the family tree we've already dealt with. Nahor, Bethuel, well, that will come into play here. Milcah is the wife of Nahor. They have Laban, and here we have a son and a daughter that are some kind of cousin to Isaac here. So Abraham, his wife has died. I don't put it in my notes, but he will get married again and have a bunch more kids. And but they don't make any difference on this chart, so I'm not worrying about them. And now it's an important next step. Isaac, who is now a young man, let's face it, if Sarah dies at 127 years of age, and she was 90 years old when he was born, how old is Isaac?
37.
37, very good. Never mind. 37. So we're looking at a young man here. It's time to get married. 37 years of age. It's time for him to get a wife. Now, Abraham goes through the normal process, but he says he does not want him to get a wife locally, nor does he want him to return home to select a wife for himself. So he sends a servant to procure a wife for him from his relatives in Padam Aram in Mesopotamia, where they are living. And so it appears as though up in Haran, in Padam Aram, where Terah brought his family when they first moved from Ur, only Abraham leaves them. The rest of the family is still up there in that same general area in northern Mesopotamia, and Abraham sends a servant up there to get a wife. Now Isaac is fully aware that this is happening. This is not a surprise. Like, surprise, you have a wife. No, he knows this is happening. But whatever happens here, whatever woman is brought for him by this servant, this is the plan Dad has, that's fine with him. It doesn't matter if it's not fine with him. It's gonna be officially fine with him. He doesn't have any other choice but to say it's fine with him. So I'm sure it's fine with him. The servant, when he arrives, is told, do not, under any circumstance, go and take my son up there. If the woman you select doesn't want to come, then you are absolved of your obligation of bringing a son back for Isaac. So when he gets there, he comes into this area, there's a well there, and he's asking himself, who should I pick? So he prays and asks God, this is always a good idea, pray and ask God, how do I figure out which one should be this wife? So he says, ask the candidate for a drink of water. If she comes and she gets water out of the well, ask her for a drink of water. I don't know how many times he may have asked, can I have a drink of water? Can I have a drink of water? And it doesn't go well. I don't know. That's not in the script. But what we know is he sees Rebecca coming. He asks her for water. And not only does she give him water, without prompting, he knows this is going to be the right one if she says, I will also get water for your camels. Now that's a lot of work. So what this shows is that she's industrious and kind and willing to exert herself, responsible, all of these different things. And besides, he already says that Rebecca was the most beautiful woman he had seen. So she's pretty, and she's hardworking, and she's industrious, and then, woohoo, icing on the cake, she's related. I mean, today, when you get all those other characteristics, and then you find out she's related, that can kind of temper your enthusiasm. But not then. I mean, that was like, woohoo, and she's a close relative too. So that made it even better.
Change your guess.
So unlike today, that would be a bad sign, bad news. Anyway, not here.
I think all the enthusiasm would be gone.
Rebecca was the granddaughter of Abraham's brother Nahor. So there is some kind of relation. I don't know, you'd have to ask some kind of genealogist how to figure out how they're related, but it would be, they're about the same age. She might even be younger than him. But because of the age at which Isaac was born, as far as Abraham is concerned, it's more like a person would be marrying their cousin's child. That would be more of the way of looking at it. Marrying your cousin's child. So she passes the test. Rebecca's father and brother recognize the Lord is involved in this. She goes back home. He gives her jewelry, various items of jewelry, earrings, whatever. I'm not sure exactly, but all bracelets and so forth. he takes them back, and she's explaining that, who she met, and they say, bring him in. And so they come in, and he puts up all their camels and all the people, and they just have a big party. It's so wonderful to see you. And then he explains, okay, this is why I'm here. I'm here to find a wife for Abraham's son. And I've decided, after going through this test, she's it. And her brother Laban and the father both say, if she is willing to go, we will allow it. So it's not like, that's great, where do we sign the contract, what are you going to give us? I mean, that's how most of these things work. Servant sits down with the dad makes a deal, and then he says, honey, I've just signed off your marriage contract, get your bags packed, you're on your way. That's how it would go. But that's not what happens here. She has a choice in the matter. That is to be taken into consideration. She's consenting to this.
It was a Calvinist marriage.
No, in that sense, she's consenting to this. And people may ask the question, when are they married? Because clearly, there are gifts of clothing and gold that are given, not only to her, but to her family, and all kinds of other things that he has brought with him that were designed to help seal the deal. She is willing to go, and they say, let's call the girl and ask her about it. So they called Rebecca, and they asked her, will you go with this man? And she says, I will go. So they send her sister Rebecca on her way, along with her nurse and Abraham's servant and his men, and they blessed Rebecca and said this to her, our sister, may you increase to thousands upon thousands, and may your offspring possess the gates of your enemies. There's the wedding blessing. I don't see that read very often at weddings these days, but that was important there, because they're never going to see her again. And they're saying, may God bless you, and you have lots of descendants, and they will advance and take the possessions of their enemies, and you're going to create a new nation, and we're so happy for you. When they return to, Rebecca agreed to go with a blessing, and when they arrive in Canaan, she and Isaac begin their married life together. This is where the question of when they got married sort of comes up, because when they arrive, they see a man coming in from the field. She's on the camel next to or with the servant, and she says, who's that guy coming? And he says, that's your master. That's your husband there. And so she puts on her veil to cover her face, as would be expected of a bride who is going to meet her husband for the first time. And Isaac brought her into the tent of his mother Sarah, and he married Rebekah. So she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac comforted her was comforted after his mother's death. So apparently after his mother's death, that tumult in his life prompted the need for a relationship and marriage, and they consummate their relationship there in that tent, and they become man and wife. But in one sense, they were already married here. So it's not like they weren't really married. Marriage ceremonies are not in the Bible. There are, but I mean, not the one we use. We use one, and if you want to use a different one, and we all agree that after you do this or that, you're married, you're married. That's why missionaries accept pagan marriage ceremonies as legit, or justice of the peace, or something else along that line. They're still married. So their marriage was done when they were far apart, when the father accepted the gifts in exchange for them going, and then when they returned, that marriage was consummated. It took months or weeks or whatever till they arrived back, but that was then consummated, and they started their married life together. But Isaac really had no choice in the matter. His wife was her. He couldn't say, oh, by the way, we're gonna do something, we're gonna do this again, we're gonna do over. She knew that that was his wife that was on the camel when she arrived, yeah.
So is this something where, like, when the wife would leave her family, would she see them again, or was it something like she's permanently leaving?
I mean, she might see them again, but it doesn't appear in scripture that she ever went home for a visit or that they ever came. Because when Joseph leaves, Jacob leaves to go up there, he's fleeing. But it doesn't appear, I don't think she ever saw her family again. She was leaving. Now, Abraham dies. Abraham lived 175 years. He then distributes his property. Isaac is given everything, for the most part, after his death, as the child of promise. The sons of Keturah, that's his second wife, they get some parting gifts, like at the end of Jeopardy if you don't win. Get some parting gifts, a take-home version of the game or whatever. I don't know what they got. They got some kind of parting gift. Ishmael, he gets nothing. Zero. He don't even get parting gifts. The last place where Ishmael is seen is that he arrives at his dad's funeral and helps Isaac bury him together in the cave of Machpelah next to his mother.
Scripture give us any idea of what their relationship was like, if they even had one?
Well, it appears as though that it says that he was a man that was like raging against everyone. So I don't appear as though they had a very good relationship or a close one at all. I think this was somewhat of a tense meeting that was necessary because of their attachment having the same father. But clearly, Ishmael could say that he should be the person who gets everything. He's the older son, but he was displaced by this one. So I can see that that was not good. Now, Isaac and Rebekah have twins. In fact, in their the presentation of having twins, the mother is barren. This is often the case. There's a lot of situations where the mother is barren, and in this case, they pray and ask God in order to bless her. This is important. There's only one son of promise, and we're back at the same kind of crisis again. This woman is having difficulty having children. Now, they don't do the servant route. They really do pray and seek God, and God blesses them with twins. Her pregnancy is an answer to Isaac's prayer. The fetuses struggle in the womb. It is a difficult pregnancy. And once again, even though the younger one is only younger by a matter of minutes or hours, there are two nations in your womb, the oracle says. Because they go to see someone who could tell them something about God. There's trouble with this pregnancy. And if the two twins are fighting even before they are born, what are things going to be like when they're toddlers? There are two nations in your womb. The older one will serve the younger. So that is in the mind of everyone. And it may be a basis behind why Rebekah will do what she does later in trying to get her younger son a blessing. But nonetheless, this is true. They are born. They are not identical twins. They're very different. Esau, who is the oldest, is ruddy complected and hairy, like to hunt and the outdoors. He had a Cabela's membership. Lived for the moment. Was very impulsive. And Isaac liked him better. And Isaac may have had similar characteristics and enjoyed, uh, uh, enjoyed, his company and the like. The other son, them only having one son, which may indicate that, either Isaac or Rebekah, whoever the problem was in infertility, they were infertile as a couple. And they only had this one child that was an answer to prayer. No other pregnancies that we know of. He was smooth-skinned and not hairy, light-colored skin. He is called the heel grasper because when he was born, he was holding on to his brother's heel as they came out of the womb. So clearly, thinking about that and saying how much there was between them, there wasn't a whole lot of time between them because as soon as one was born, the next one was being born anyway. Always planned ways to get ahead. And he's more domestic. He's at home cooking stew, working in the domestic arts. He's on his way to being a Food Network star. So this is him. He's a very different kind of person. Nothing wrong with either of these personalities. They were both perfectly capable and men who could do wonderful things, but the mother favored him. And so there's trouble in this marriage, although there's no such thing as divorce or anything along that line. But there's not a whole lot of camaraderie between them. Case of the birthright. Let's take a look here. We're moving into the situation where this is brought into mind. Esau is out hunting and he cannot find anything. He returns discouraged and hungry. And if people are, those of you who do hunt, any of you hunt? You hunt? You go out hunting and you're hunting all day and you can't find anything, it can be discouraging. Same thing with fishing or any of these other issues of this nature. He's home. He needs to eat. And Jacob is there in camp making lentil stew. And Isaac asks for some. Hey, can I have some stew? Jacob has an idea. I am not going to give you stew for nothing. I am going to get something. So he asks for his birthright in exchange for the stew.
You have a horrible trade.
And he agrees. All right. Basically thinking, if I die of starvation, what good is the birthright to me? You're going to get it anyway. That is basically the idea. The book of Hebrews seems to indicate that he despised his birthright. Not like he hated it, but he saw it as no value. What difference does it matter? This idea that, let me tell you, most people can go a long time without eating before they're going to die. If you understand what is being asked of you in order to get a little bit of food that's only going to sustain you for a short period of time. He wasn't getting a lifetime supply of stew, just one bowl. One bowl of stew. And then he just walks off. No big deal. Eat it. Gone. Esau despised his birthright. So we can say that he had no respect for his place in the community. It's an honor to be the person of birthright. You have a responsibility to your community, to the people around you. He just gives that all up. But in another sense, he had an exalted opinion of himself as an individual. I don't need this birthright. I can make do on my own. Well, the whole reason why you are getting the stew is because you weren't as good at hunting as you thought you might be. You wouldn't be asking for this stew If you were really self-sufficient, were you? So that idea is also embedded in here, but it's a lie. He needs other people to help him, and he has a responsibility to his community as the person of birthright, but he gives that up. Esau may not have been fully aware of the seriousness of the agreement. I mean, I've watched Judge Judy. I know people make agreements all the time that they're unaware of the seriousness of the agreement they've just made and what it means. People make agreements all the time that they're going to be held to. Be careful when you flippantly make an agreement with someone. It might not be in your best interest. And here, certainly, that was not the case. I don't think he thought through all the way through and said, I gave up my birthright here for this little bit of stew. He's just not thinking. We've got to be thinking, people. Because the choices made when you're young or old can have huge consequences. Esau was godless and found no place of blessing. There it's because in the book of Hebrews, he sought bitterly for a return of his blessing, but he never really repents. He becomes bitter and angry because of the consequences of his choices. Now, some people will make choices in their lives that you can't get away from. And you can't be bitter and angry that other people are holding you to the consequences of your choices. You have to deal with it. You have to recognize that's fact. Seek God and all those things. But he became a bitter person who was angry, and because of the intervention of God, he then kind of cooled down here in the book of Genesis. But he's on his way to kill his brother. And something happens. We don't know what. And that ends. Now, here we have chapter Isaac on his own. Chapter 26, which is the only chapter in the Bible that only has Isaac in it. I could put this slide actually ahead. Isaac passes his wife off as his sister again.
Did he do it twice?
Yeah, he only does it once, but he does, as you mentioned, exactly what his father did twice. At least he's only doing it once.
Yeah.
But
So-
I bet if he had another chance, he would have done it.
Possibly. He prospers in the land, just like his father. He looks for water. He digs 2 wells, and then Rehoboth is the well that he will build, that he will dig, and he is then able to keep it. That shows the fact that he is industrious and willing to make a place for himself in a land with the will of God. And then in the end of chapter 26, we recognize that he will commit himself to the covenant personally. Before this, it would be he's still, just like others of the patriarchs, he is worshiping the God of his father. After this, it's going to be the God of Abraham and Isaac, because now he is committing himself. And this may be a good sign. He only does the thing with his wife being his sister once, and that's before he commits himself to the covenant at a personal level. Then he doesn't do it anymore. If you're committing yourself to the covenant, don't pass off your wife as your sister. It's not a good idea anyway. Now, the blessing. This is then the next big event and story. Chapter 27. Jacob pretends to be Esau. Isaac says, I'm going to give out my blessings. His eyes are dim. He has cataracts. His eyes are dim. Can't see well. He's getting up in years. And so he says to his son, Esau, go out and kill some deer, venison, antelope, whatever it happens to be, venison, and cook it up the way you do, I like so much, and bring it in and give it to me, and when you do, I'll give you a blessing. Okay, so off he goes. In the back room, behind the tent, in the back tent, Rebecca hears this and says, okay, my husband has sent Esau off in order to get some deer and make a stew, venison, whatever. And she says to her son, Jacob, go and kill a kid, a little goat, a baby goat. No mistakes here. Go and kill a little goat and bring it into me, and I will stew it up in a way that tastes like venison, because I know how to do that. And you go in and serve this to your dad before your brother gets home. And he says, oh, no. They're going to know who I am. They're going to see me. He can't see you. He's got cataracts. But he'll smell me. I won't smell right. I won't, I'm not hairy like him. So they take the fur off of the animal, put it on his arms. There's something really weird about how this was, you were able to be fooled this way. But anyway, fur's on his arms, and he wears, now this is legitimate, he wears one of Esau's garments over him that smells like him. So he takes that in, and his father is fooled.
Does this imply that Esau felt like a goat?
No, but he, you should be able to tell the difference. But anyway, he's thinking to himself, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the smell is the smell of Esau. Isaac knows something is wrong. There's something wrong here. Not sure what it is, but something is wrong here. But he fools him enough that he is willing to give his son the blessing. Characteristic of Jacob's blessing. Blessing on those who bless him, curse on those who curse him. He will narrow the Abrahamic blessing down to one of his sons, and now it's Jacob. Esau arrives. And he says, hi, I'm home. I've got your stew. Well, who are you? I'm Esau, your son. Well, who was the Esau that was just here? That must have been my brother pretending to be me, to fool you into giving me a blessing. Now, let me tell you, if you have two sons, it is likely you're going to have a blessing for both of them. You get the blessing, Caleb, and Tyler gets nothing.
No.
That's basically what this is. There's only one. In fact, he says, bless me too, bless me too. Make me a blessing that's just not as good as that blessing. No. That's not how it works. That is mind-blowing in our culture to think along these lines. Esau has no blessing and is furious. In fact, he is given a curse, basically, saying, you're going to serve your brother. And he goes out and he is angry. What did his mother think was going to happen? Goes out and is angry. He's already stolen my birthright. No. You sold it to him, not for a very good price. This was stolen. Threatened his life. He says, I'm going to kill him. And then, in order to get him out of the way, this is another part of the story here, but Jacob is sent away by Rebekah to get a wife in Padanaram. That's the cover story. She goes into the dad and say, I can't stand these local women. I can't stand them at all. I don't want him, my sons, to marry one of them. Send him away to get a wife from among my people up there in Padanaram. And Jacob thinks, that's okay. That's where I got my wife. That's not a bad idea. So off he goes. But the real reason is, I need to get you out of here before Esau kills you. And then, yeah.
Did Isaac or Esau know that Rebecca helped him?
It is unclear. Clearly, we know this, and somehow that information passed down. I don't know that there was any, even if he knew it, there's no way to go back and undo what he did, even though he knew he was fooled. He doesn't say, I'm revoking your blessing because you committed fraud in order to get it. No. You committed fraud, but you still are blessed. And if mom helped you, you don't, you just deal with life as it comes. Yeah, that's an interesting question, but I don't know. I can't answer that, and I don't know that it would have made a difference. And then, of course, Esau will marry a local woman just because he finds out that his dad and mom don't like them. That's why. If they don't like these women, then I'm going to marry them, because I am tired of this family that is putting abuse on me. So when we're looking at the idea of birthright, the birthright was a special privilege of the firstborn, whereby he inherited a double portion of the estate. So if you have two sons, in this case, how much would the first son get? The oldest son out of two would get how much of the estate? A double. So what percentage of the estate would this is a math question, firstborn son get?
2/3.
2/3, thank you. The homeschooling mom knows. 2/3, that's right, 2/3. 1/3, that's a big difference. Now, of course, when Jacob has 12 sons, that's a big difference. The birthright looks like it goes to Joseph, and he would have 2/12 or 13. There's 13 groupings, but you get 2/12 of the total. Yeah.
Is that because, well, so is there like several different firstborns in that family? Like
There are, and it's sort of, you'll see that some of them, because the one has sexual relations with his father's concubine, he's eliminated. And then there's another one that gets eliminated for some other reason. And eventually it goes, but Judah is the firstborn of his favorite wife, and so I think that's why he gets the blessing. Now the blessing had to do with divine objective, and in this case, that goes to Jacob. Now Jacob is on his way to Padanaram, and while he is there, he is confronted by God. And let me tell you, this should give us all some degree of comfort. You know, if you have a child, or you know anybody, but someday you may have a child, or you may have a brother or a sister that this is a characteristic of, or whatever, that if they're fleeing from God, God can still break in to their life, and they have no idea it's happening. He's not limited by such things. He wasn't expecting to meet God out there on the way. That's the last thing on his mind. He is displaying fear, spawned out of a guilty conscience. And he is confronted unexpectedly in a dream in which he sees heaven open and angels walking on a ladder down to earth and back up again. Book of Acts tells us that that is Christ, and that it is the work of God that is going forth. What did Jacob find? Remember from your reading?
Right.
Did we have a friendship? He has divine forgiveness.
He wrestled.
He'll
Divine
wrestle.
purpose.
And I heard something. Divine purpose. He is not what we would call, no one was actually, well, in the proper sense, no one was really saved in the Old Testament. But he's not really saved yet. He sets up a memorial to the Lord, and he says, to God, God, if you do these things, I'll do this. This is an arrangement. This isn't really committing, surrendering to God. You know, if you say, God, you get me home from this war situation, I'll serve you. Okay, that's fine. You don't make deals with God. You can do that at some point, but at some level, you're going to have to commit to God, even if this doesn't work out the way you set up. If God is with him and gives him food and clothes, takes care of his needs, and eventually brings him back home to his father, then Jacob will make the Lord his God. If you do this for me, then I'll commit myself to you. I will make this place a house of God. I will make this place, Bethel, a place where you are honored. Now he will go back to Bethel, but he waits and waits and waits and waits and waits. He isn't enthusiastic about going back to Bethel, but he will. And I will give the Lord a tenth of all of his blessings. I need to add 2 letters to that. All of the things that he has blessed me with, I will give you 10%. So if you do this, I'll do that. And as he is leaving, he then arrives in Padam Aram, reminded once again of our family tree. We have Isaac and Rebekah. Now we have Jacob and Esau. Esau will produce the Edomites. Jacob will arrive and live with his uncle Laban, who has 2 daughters, Leah and Rachel. And these 2 daughters have servants very similar to Hagar, exact same thing, Zilpah and Bildah. And between the 4 of them, they have 12 tribes of Jews. Plus at least 1 daughter that we know of. Now, Jacob finally meets someone who is as much of a trickster and a manipulator as he is. Good job. I mean, it takes a pretty good tricker person to deal with Jacob. And so he meets one. One deceiver meets another. These 2 are the same. Let me tell you, Mom wasn't that great either in this area. So the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree. There's a lot of this in their family. So one deceiver meets another. After he arrives, he sees a young lady by the name of Rachel, who he thinks is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. And this is his first cousin now. Again, the generations are getting more condensed. This is his first cousin. And he decides that he will get married, wants to marry her. And so he makes a deal with her father, which seems, I think, rather reasonable. Jacob would work 7 years for Rachel. in this case, I really believe that he worked 7 years, and it says that it seemed like it was just a week. And that analogy is used here, but it was just like a week because he loved her so much. I mean, those 7 years just flew by. But things didn't work out as he had planned. Now, there could be a bunch of reasons why on his wedding night he didn't know it was that he didn't know that it was that he was getting the wrong woman. There appears to be some difference in them from appearance and size or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but she's veiled clearly during the wedding ceremony. You would imagine that the other sister wasn't there, or that would have given it away in the crowd. There's all kinds of things. I just think my main opinion is this, even though we don't drink alcohol, I think he was a little tipsy and had no idea what was going on. That's my opinion. But nonetheless, he wakes up the next morning, and to his surprise, and it would be a surprise, it's Leah there with him, not Rachel. And he goes to his father-in-law, uncle, and says, hey, wait a second here. I work for you. Did we get something wrong in the fine print of this contract? I thought I was working for Rachel. I mean, and he said, oh, by the way, we have a tradition here in our part of the world that the oldest daughter has to be married first before the younger. Well, why didn't you tell me that? I'd have bought her an eHarmony gift certificate or something. I mean, we could have gotten her married in the next year. So, I mean, so he says, I'll work another 7 years for Rachel. Now, I don't think he had to wait 7 more years to get her. At this point, he agrees to work for 7 more years, but he gets her right away. Because there's never a period where he seems to only have one wife. He has both of them at all times. So he works 7 more years for Rachel. Over the course of their marital life, he has 7 sons and 1 daughter, most of them by Leah. But eventually, Rachel has some children too. But before that, she gives him her concubine in order to have, or servant to have children for her. And then Leah stops having children, so she gives him her servant as a concubine. And so eventually, there are 12. And the next thing is Jacob gets rich. So after he has worked the 7 years, 14 years for his wives, he then works another 7 years for animals. And whether or not he was aware of genetics that say that patterns and darker colors are usually dominant, and lighter skinned and plain animals are recessive, so that if you breed black sheep with white sheep, you're going to get either a spotted sheep, depending on how their characteristics are, or a darker colored sheep. You're not going to. That's the way it'll work. So he makes a deal that for 7 years he will work, and that he will get all the streaked and spotted sheep, the dark-colored lambs, and the spotted and speckled goats. Now, the only thing that I don't really understand, and I will admit I have no idea what this means, if it had any significance whatsoever, if it had significance only in their mind. But he will take stronger animals, both females and males, but primarily females, and have them mate with his darker males, because if you have strong females, they'll produce good kids. And it doesn't matter what she's like as far as her characteristics. She could be light or dark, or streaked, or spotted, or plain. Because if you breed her with a male that is dark, or streaked, or spotted, you'll get streaked and spotted young. And the weaker females, he had breed with plain ones to ensure that they would be more likely to have the streaked and spotted were better animals. And now what I don't understand is when he took pieces of limb and cut them up and laid them down in the water in order to whatever, I don't know what that did. I don't know if that did anything. But his plan by genetics will work. And in the end, Laban's sons are saying, this man is stealing everything from us. And Laban agrees. And he is not looked at by Laban in the same way. We look here, you have 12 sons and how the 12 tribes are laid out. Leah, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, those are Leah's sons. That's great. She even hopes that her husband will love her now, that she has borne him 6 sons. I mean, how, you know full well, the only reason you're married to this man is because your daddy tricked him into marrying you. He doesn't want you at all. He wants your sister. And he's always treating her better. That would not be a good way of looking at it. But she's hoping he will love her because she has borne him 6 sons. Bildad, the concubine, Dan and Naphtali, Zilpah, Gad and Asher, and then Rachel, Joseph, and then she dies in childbirth with Benjamin. In I think in the city of Bethlehem, or outside of there. The way that we have 12 tribes, because you'll ask yourself, how do we get 12 tribes? Joseph's sons are counted with Jacob, Ephraim and Manasseh, so that brings 13 units, because Levi is the community of priests and doesn't have a tribal allotment land, and is never counted in with the tribes. The only place in the Bible that I know of where the tribe of Joseph is mentioned is in the book of Revelation, where the 144,000 are sealed at the end of time. The tribe of Joseph is mentioned, which would indicate that Ephraim and Manasseh are then put together there within that. But there could be another place where the tribe of Joseph is mentioned, but I can't think of one. Go ahead and find one, and I'll be happy to write down in my notes. It's also here. But I can't think of another place where it's listed. When we come back next time, we're going to start on a journey home. And let me tell you, it doesn't get any better for Joseph, for Jacob on his way home. He's got new trouble. Rachel has characteristics just like his mom and her dad. These people know how to deceive one another. It's an interesting thing. Okay, so next week, maps due Wednesday, and your test is on Friday. We will take it here. If anyone wants a paper test, send me a message and I will have paper tests for you. Otherwise, it will be on the computer.
Test next week. What's gonna be on the test?
It's on the study guide. You see that? It's in the file section.
Yeah,
If you have a question about how to use that, see.
I have dishes, so
Yeah.
it's like before dishes, I can get them. Okay.